Hello everyone, it's Diane, and today we are going to do a simple technique where we're going to make leather out of paper. And we're going to cover this box and make it look like a leather trunk. And the way we do that is with craft paper. There are tubes of craft paper you can buy fairly cheaply. I have seen them in the dollar store, but you could also just get them in Walmart or a store like that, or the craft store. And it's quite a bit of paper for, like I said, very cheap. So also an alternative is a paper bag from the store. I just happened to go to Joann's today, and the bag was very light and thin. The thinner the paper is of the craft paper or paper bag, the easier the project will be. And all you're going to do is take a fairly like 12 by 12 piece of the craft paper, and you're just going to break down the fibers by constantly for good, I would say, half hour to 45 minutes of just watch your favorite show and just keep doing this until you break the fibers down until the paper is almost like fabric. It's soft, it's pliable, and as you see, it's got all the grooves and ripples and folds in it, so that when you lay it down, glued down on top of the wooden box, it resembles very much like leather. So it's not a new technique. It's been around for a long time. I've done actually many projects using this technique. So I figured I would share it with you if you didn't know about it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to wrap this box. Now, I've done test runs on covering boxes in the past, and it never ends well if you end up putting anything on along this edge, because the box will not want to close. So you don't want to put anything along the edge. So what we're going to do is we're just going to wrap up into the edge on both the top and the bottom. And what I did in preparation for this project, and I wish I had filmed it, but I didn't. And when I went back to Dollar Tree, my local Dollar Tree, to find another box so I could show you how I sank the hinges, they didn't have any left. So hopefully you'll be able to find them. If not, they come around every couple of months, so eventually you will find one. It might not be in your local Dollar Tree right now, but it will be there eventually. They do come back around quite frequently. So what I did in order to sink these, and the reason I did it is because the screws stick up, as you can see. If I had not cut away a square on each side of wood and then put the screws back in, they would be above the level of the wood, the top wood, and it's just difficult to work with, especially in miniature. It just doesn't look right. So I sunk them in. If I ever get the opportunity to show you how I did that exactly, it's really not hard. You're just cutting only about a 1/16 of an inch down below the level of the top of the wood, and you just carve it out and then replace the hinges, and then they still work. It's not a problem. The box did have a front latch, but it's so big and cumbersome looking, I don't like the way it looks, so we're not going to use that. This project, I wanted to do everything in paper, so I'm going to see if I can challenge myself and try to make a latch that looks real but is actually made from paper. And one of the things that I often do is I use the inside of wedding invitations, Christmas cards, and I save the metal, anything metallic, because you never know in miniature when you're going to need something metallic. And I think this is the perfect opportunity to use this particular wedding invitation for the latches on this trunk. So I'm going to start by showing you how I wrap the box, the top and the bottom. I'm not going to unhinge it because I've already done that once, and every time you do it, you make the holes bigger, and everything gets a little wonky. So in order to cover these screws, because you don't want the paper going down into this channel that I made, I'm just going to put one layer on the top and one layer on the bottom so that everything is even, and the paper will wrap around it nicely and cleanly. This is just a matter of tracing where it was, cutting it out, and gluing it on. It's nothing more than that. This is the bottom. I'm just going to take some white PVA glue and glue it right there, and then I'll do the same to the top. Be careful not to get the glue in the hinges, because it will, as much as this is a glue that doesn't really hold metal, it will interfere if you get a gob of glue in the hinges. So just keep that in mind and don't get too messy. Also, don't get glue in the seam. Okay, and now I'll just do the top. Every time I do something, I check that this is still closing, because as you add things to it, things readjust, and for some reason, sometimes you'll have no understanding why, but it won't close. So always check that it's still opening before you move on to the next step, because you might not have the chance to go back and fix whatever it is that's keeping it from closing. Just going to trim anything that I see that's hanging over, just to make it cleaner. Wrapping the bottom first. You're going to eye it first. Just make sure you have a little bit more, just like with wrapping a present, you have a little bit more than you actually need. Make a mark, cut it. And I'm just going to cut all the way. It still closes. And then this. You have more than enough. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put some glue on the bottom, and I'm going to center it on this piece. Very simple. No measuring, very little measuring anyway. Pretty much going to eye it. Smooth out the bottom, and there's your leather texture. You want a little bit less texture, smooth it out even more with your fingers. Okay, we want it only to go up to here. So I'm going to make a note. I'm going to take this, fold it up, and make a line along the edge. Don't worry if you don't cut it right, if it's a little bit off. When you're done, any little mishap like that, you're not going to notice it. I'm going to do it to the sides. You're going to be able to feel where the hinge is, and you want to get just below the hinge. Hinge is over here, so you know that that's where you're going to be cutting. With those lines, you're just going to cut. like I said, if it's not perfect, don't worry about it. I even have a few little tears in here. Everything's going to be painted. Everything's going to be finished off very nicely. Once you're done. When you glue down behind the hinges, make sure you don't get any glue like we did before with this. You don't want any glue getting in there. Now see how this is a little wavy? That's fine. Don't worry about that at all. As a matter of fact, let's just glue this side down first. I'm just going to smooth it up. Like I said, when this is all painted, you won't know the difference. Box still opens and closes. Remember to test it. You'd be surprised at the littlest thing that's going to stop it from closing. Okay, now you have this U shape here. What you're going to do is you're going to go into these corners and you're going to cut. Now I'm taking a scissor, a sharp scissor, and I'm just going to cut right to that corner. I'm going to do it on all 4 sides. Okay. Now what you're going to do is, like with a package, you're going to bring these 2 flaps inside like that, and you're going to glue them down. You can overlap them, it doesn't really matter. But if you want it to be super smooth and you really want it to butt up against each other, trim it as necessary. So they would do that there. And then these overlap a little bit. So let's trim the shorter one. There we go. Those overlap. And then, because when you're done with those, you're going to bring that up to that way. So let's glue these down. And basically, you're going to do the exact same thing with the top of the box as well. What's nice about this paper is once you have it broken down and the fibers are all nice and soft, look how smooth that goes down. It's nice to work with. Plus, where these 2 edges meet, just take a little bit of glue and put them down. And as you see, you barely can see a seam. And that's the nice part about using the paper. Okay, now we have these outside flaps. These you want to be a little cleaner with. And what you want is you don't want it to have to fold over. So just trim that a little bit. Cut it at a very slight angle into the corner. And you're going to trim those seams. I'll show you. Let's see if it goes up above the edge. It goes a little bit above this edge, so let's trim a little of that. Again, we don't want that. I know you see the wood. That's fine. It's perfectly fine. No worries. That's all going to be taken care of in the end. Make sure you put even number of glue, an even amount of glue, so that everything just melds together. There you go. Got that little hole there? No problem. We just fixed it. And I'm going to do the top now with the same amount of care, not to get the box, get anything along these seams. And then I'll be back. Okay, now I finished the top. we're still clicking shut. So it's time to paint. I'm going to paint both the interior and the exterior the same color for now, and that is brown. This is a raw umber, raw umber acrylic paint. Now here's something that I need to tell you about. You see these? These are the nails that, the screws that, because I sunk the hinges lower than they were originally supposed to be, they do come out that extra 1/16 of an inch through the wood. So don't be surprised by that if you end up sinking the hinges the way I did. Be careful you don't stick yourself. Okay, when you get to the edges, you do not want to paint over your hinges. You do not want to put a lot of paint along the edge, again, so that the box still wants to close. So I'm going to use a smaller brush. And I'm going to more stain it than anything. I know it seems weird, but I never want to take a chance that this box is not going to close, because I've had it happen to me before. Stay away from the hinges. Just get as close as you have to. Okay, we're done with the raw umber, and now we're going to do a little dry brushing with burnt sienna. So I'm using a stippling brush. You don't need to. You could use a regular paintbrush, one that you don't mind wrecking by doing dry brush. What you're trying to do is you're trying to, I don't know how well you're able to see it on camera. You're trying to get some depth and to show those creases and folds in the leather like paper. Can you see that? This is only one layer. We're going to actually do a couple of layers of paint. It's starting to look like a worn old trunk, which is what we're going for. The kind of trunk you would find in an old abandoned attic. Okay, we got all sides done with that coat. Now I'm going to go right in with some gray paint. I just happen to have pre-mixed, which is just, actually it's just white with the raw umber in it instead of black. And I'm going to do the same thing with this, but in a lighter hand. See, that was too much. All right. This much lighter. You just want to get the highest creases, just to bring up the fact that this is a very textured piece. You don't want to get it into the crevices. That's for the darker colors. This would be great in a haunted castle or a spooky house scene, which is very popular right now. Doing haunted houses in the miniature world. There are whole Facebook pages, groups dedicated to it. Okay, well now while that's drying, let's see, I hope you can see that. That's the inside. We didn't really paint that. The inside is unfinished other than paint. And this is what it looks like up close. Now we need to put the steel edges that most trunks have. And then we will put on the corner edges, the metal corners, keep it from. Okay, while that was drying, what I did was take black construction paper. I made it into 1/4 inch wide strips, the length of the paper. And then I scored a 1/8 line in the center of the 1/4 inch so that I could fold it over like this. And what that is going to be is that's going to go along the edges of the box, as you would normally see on a trunk. Usually they're metal wrought iron rods that go around, and that's what with this, and that's what we're going to do with this. Again, it's just construction paper, and I don't think you can see where I scored it. I scored a line right down the middle with a blunt needlepoint needle, and just slowly fold it until you have a nice edge. And then once you have it, you're just going to place it on the corners and glue it, cut it and glue it. So right here is where we're going to cut it. And then I'm going to make 4 sizes of that, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to cut 1, 2, 3, 4 of these, of the long side. And then I'm going to cut 1, 2, 3, 4 of this size, and then 4 of this size. So it's fairly self-explanatory, and so I'm just going to start gluing. Now don't worry about where they meet on the edges, because we are going to put those metal rounds to wherever they happen to meet in the center. You'll see what I mean. I'm actually going to paint the glue onto these because it looks to me like it's going to be hard to do it with a toothpick. And then once I get all those on, you'll see, I'll show you how I do the corner brackets. Okay, I'm done putting all the strips of black wrought iron, actually made of just black paper. All this is going to be sealed once we have everything done. And now we have to do the corners. Some of the corners that it's usually a round with a quarter cut out, and then it's stuck on each corner as a fitting to hold the bars in place on a real trunk. So I drew out on the metal paper that I spoke about earlier in the video about how this is from a wedding invitation. I traced out some 7/16, I believe it is, circles. I'm going to cut each one out. I will cut one and I'll show you. If you have a hole punch, this would be so much easier. The hole punches I have are either too small or too large. I believe I did have one that was the perfect size, but that hole punch broke and I never replaced it. So now we just have this small piece of metal, supposed metal. You're going to fold it in half. Then you're going to fold it again. Oop, tricky to hold. You're going to fold it again. Then you're going to unfold it. And oopsie daisy. And then one of these triangles, one of these quarters, you're just going to snip it out with a good sharp scissor. Okay. And you're left with what looks like Pac-Man. If anybody remembers Pac-Man. And then you're going to put these on the corners where each of the bars meet. So I'm going to do that all around, at least the 4 top ones and the 4 bottom ones, corners. I'm going to put a lot of glue on this because I have a feeling that because this is not construction paper, this is decorative paper, it might be a little harder to stick. Okay. And there you go. That's the corner. And now I'm going to go ahead and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 more. All right, what I did was I did a whole layer of Mod Podge over all the paper products because I just want to prevent them from ripping in the future. Now what I want to do is they have those like belt-like enclosures, and they go around, and they would go up to here, and then you would have the other half come down and belt the piece closed. So what I'm going to do is that, but first I need to make the belt itself look a little bit older, a little bit aged, and an actual piece of leather. So I don't want to use the same paper as I was using, so I'm just going to use this, and I'm going to age it a little bit with paint. A little bit of burnt sienna. And now that I think about it, I really should double up the width of this piece of paper because it's a little bit thin for what. I mean, that looks okay. It looks, you know, a little leathery. I'll finish doing this, and then I'm gonna glue it to another piece. Oh, there you go. Gives it more of a texture. I'm learning as I go, just like you guys. Never did this project before, so we'll see where it takes us. So far, I'm liking how this is looking. I'm going to lay this down here, and I'm going to use the beginning and the beginning here, and the, well, maybe the second one. There we go. The second bar on each side. I'm going to use that as a guide. Okay, so that will go right there. Over the bottom. Now these are supposed to be belts, so I don't expect them to be tacked down as if they were a permanent piece of the project. Okay. And this one, it's going to go here. And we're going to cut it. And then when the one that's painted dries, I'm going to lay it across here. I'm going to do this side, and then I'll cut the ones that come over the top. Blend into the Mod Podge. All right, now I need to cut some another blank piece to go over the top and hang down just a little because it's supposed to be a belt. I'm going to come up from the back and over the top. This project, which I thought was going to be a quick one, turned out not to be quick, which is fine, as long as you guys don't mind. Okay, now I'm just going to let this one hang down for now, 3/4 of an inch. After we get these belts sorted, then all we have to do is put on the locks, and that will be it. Now, I'm going to glue this onto here. Now it looks more like a leather strap. A little bit more dimension. Okay, we'll deal with the end of that when we get to it. Okay, I finished putting the second layer of belts on. And now I have these hanging here. And I'm just going to give them a simple trim like that. I'm going to take a piece of this, glue it down onto the manila folder. Use a clean finger. Now, I have two different size hole punches. One is large and one is very small. I'll show you an example before I, for example, that one is large and that one's very small. I'm going to make a hole here, smaller hole, and then I'm going to come in and make the larger hole. There we go. So I'm going to layer this one, which is going to be the lock, over this one. Glue them together. Okay. Tiny, tiny. Gonna let that dry. Now I have this other one, and we gotta make it look like the part that comes down and hooks onto that. Or we need a strip of the metal. With a curved end. Now this is going to be the part that comes down and it latches to that. And I think it needs to be a little bit thinner. Now we're going to put this in the center here. Somehow I got black paint all over me, not sure how, or brown paint. That's going to go there. Can't pick it up. Even with short nails, I can't pick it up. This is going to go there. And I think it needs to go down lower. And somehow this goes here. I think they need to be closer. So this piece is going to go right here in the center. I'm going to glue that down. I'm going to put this piece right here. Right there. This has to go there. Do need to put a little indent to show that it goes in there. And I'm going to glue that on. This is all being made up in my head because I don't have a latch in front of me. Probably could have looked it up. Okay, then we have this one here. I'm just going to put a little indentation on it in the middle. And I'm going to glue that one over that. All out of paper. I think this needs to come down. There we go. Just a little bit more. I'm not happy with the way I cut these too short, but it gives you the idea. I could always put another piece here and try to make it look like a real belt buckle. But for now, I think this is as far as I'm going to get with this project. I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope you leave with some kind of new idea or new technique from watching this video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.